Okay, so in terms of player progression, will there be like Call of Duty's prestige system, let's say, like your player character will level up and it'll be like, okay, you've leveled up to level 7, now you've unlocked the assault rifle because you're at level 7.
It will be based around completing expeditions.
Okay.
And getting the rewards from the expeditions.
Okay.
And then you will slowly build your golf bag.
Okay. Right.
Figuratively speaking here.
Bag of tricks.
Obviously, but yeah, we want players to not, I'm the SMG guy and I'll always play with this SMG that I've pimped out and this is my favorite weapon and it always works. That's not how it's supposed to be. Maybe a little bit more for the weapons, but even less for the tools, because we want the players to not feel like, oh, I'm always the guy who carries this tool because this is what I do. But everyone has to have like a golf bag where, oh, I need the putter for this one. So what's my putter, for a map where there's a lot of whatever, those conditions, or, stealth heavy, or, a lot of, I don't know, fog, or, some spores in the air that forces you to go between like oxygen refill stations, anything that messes up the gameplay and forces you to add, adds another layer on top of just moving around and finding the objectives and avoiding the monsters. You need to, if there's another layer, if there's another thing that you need to constantly think about, it makes it more complex. And then there's tools maybe to sort of alleviate or counter that in some shape or form. GTFO is a game that deprives the player of so much information and health, and when you go into the darkness, there's you're deprived of light. If you go into the fog, you're deprived of vision beyond 2 feet away from your retina, really. So it's like it's easy for us, I'd say, or it's ripe for for creating tools where you're giving a little bit of those things back that you're deprived of, and I think that's a testament to an interesting game design where it's not always like, oh, I want a bigger gun, I want it to make more damage, I want a bigger, a magazine so I can shoot for longer before I need to reload. But you actually start thinking about, I wish there was a way to close the security doors once you open them so that we can create a choke point, or we can stop the monsters from that side of the door to actually come to us. Like maybe there's a tool for that, or there's at least some sort of a consumable item that you can find in the environment, like things like that. There's so much that you want on other than just ammunition and firepower, and I think that makes the game very interesting. So yes, there will be, obviously, I didn't mention that, but obviously there will be more than the 4 tools that are in the alpha.
Okay.
There will be a lot more tools, and the idea is for them all to be very useful. Or if there's an expedition where there's no reason to sneak around, then maybe there are tools that aren't very useful in that one, but they will all like be very useful in some expeditions. And then the idea is also to create like a symbiotic relationship between the tools, so that maybe there's right now already, if you place a sentry gun and then you shoot foam in front of it, then the monsters will get stuck in the foam and become sitting ducks for the sentry gun. So that's very useful. You can foam a door, close the door and foam it, and set a trip mine on the other side, and then the monsters will pile up on the other side, and as they break through, that trip mine will kill maybe 8 monsters instead of just the very first one that runs through alone. Maybe, I mean, we've been dreaming about, maybe there's, I don't know if we'll have some sort of a flamethrower, or if it will be, something that can set things, on fire. Maybe there's a welder or something like that, and then you can sort of have a secondary attack on that thing, and it can actually have a sort of a flame, and then you can set maybe glue on fire because the glue is flammable, and then the glue becomes a fire damage thing that monsters actually take damage from, not just get stuck in. Yeah. So all these, we have ideas for how to, but the interesting thing obviously is that everyone can only bring one tool. Mm-hmm. So in order to get that symbiotic effect, you need to talk to at least one other teammate and agree that you should bring this thing and I bring this thing, and then together we can start messing around with those strategies that weren't accessible otherwise. You know? So yeah, the strategy or the gameplay really starts already in the loadout screen, where you as a team really have to decide together, like, what should we bring? What's the strategy here? Because it really matters what you bring. You can't just be, soloing it from the beginning, and that's why we designed the loadout screen to be. It's very clear what you bring and the others bring. You see everyone's loadout. That's more important than the characters themselves, the tools and the gear, the weapons and stuff that everyone brings.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit about the sound design, since you're the sound guy. How did you come up with the noises that the creatures make? And like they shudder a little bit if you leave the flashlight on them a little bit too long, or if it looks like they're about to wake up and then you get into sneak mode, and sometimes they'll pull back and not wake up. Other times you'll set them off. Like, how did the sound part of that come about?
A lot of it comes from a session we did at one of our my colleagues at 10 Chambers. We went to his place because he had this walk-in closet with a lot of clothes hanging, and then we figured this is a good studio because all the clothes will absorb the sound, and then we just put a mic in there. I don't even think that you could have the light on when you were inside. So you'd have to stand there in complete darkness, if I recall correctly. And then we just, I brought a microphone and a laptop, and we sat outside. I think there's two Instagram stories on my Instagram. If you look for Simon Viklund Instagram, you'll find it. So that was 2 years ago or something like that, 1.5 years ago, or I don't know really. But you go back and you'll see it. We have Ulf, one of my colleagues, the game designer and creative director, coming out and was showing off how he does these weird, like, inhaling sort of noises. And then there's Svante, another colleague, who could scream like a girl, like super high pitched. He was like, because everyone was, mostly Ulf and I were doing a lot of weird stuff, like, sort of twisting our vocal cords or contorting, our throats in some way, and starting to like trying to find ways to, like, maybe if I suck and place my tongue just enough so that just enough air gets through to,
right,
and then some sort of a thing in the back of your throat starts like flapping back and forth, and it's weird, makes weird sounds, and then you pitch that down or you reverse it or something, and it becomes super interesting because it's based on human voice or a human sound, but you've manipulated it, and it becomes something really horrific. So we haven't actually been incorporating a lot of animal sounds, but it's mostly actually the team members like messing around with what we can do with our own voices, and I think that's it's a nice approach because it makes it like very personal and very organic. Yeah, for sure. It sounds gross. Good job.
Sounds gross.
Like there's this sound that they're snoring when they're sleeping. It's almost like a creaking noise.
Yeah,
and that's actually Ulf, and he just did some like some low pitch. I can't do that, but I found a sample where he did that, and he got these nice, like the waveform was so like. The flapping of the vocal cords or whatever was so low pitched that you can actually see these individual, like, this is one flap and this is the next one. So all I did was actually, I haven't manipulated it in any other way than cutting it up into all these individual short bits and stretching them out, placing them further apart, which is a sound that a human voice can never make. Because you can't make one flap and then make it flap again in your vocal cords. It has to be a consistent tone. So it's like unmistakably human, the sound, but it's like slightly something in there, which is the space between the vocal cords flapping or whatever they're doing.
That is super cool to learn that story. That's awesome.